Well, good morning. I'm Terry Brooks with Kentucky Youth Advocates, and as Rosemary may have shared, I was supposed to be there today. Unfortunately, instead of enjoying your company, and can I say even more importantly, Owensboro barbecue, I'm having a medical procedure, and so the good news for you is you're going to get to hear from my colleague Shannon Moody, who is an expert on all things child welfare. But Rosemary had asked that I spend a few minutes with you via video to kind of think about the opportunities that you as a group and the broader community of Daviess County may have. So that's what we want to do. We at Kentucky Youth Advocates have a vision that we clearly state, and that is that we want Kentucky to be the best place in America to be young. So let me ask you a question. Along with being known for barbecue, the Romp Festival, and Kentucky Wesleyan's rich legacy with NCAA championships, what if Daviess County's vision was that you were going to be the best county in Kentucky to be a kid? What does that mean? What would that mean? What are opportunities and obligations that would come with that kind of vision? I would like to suggest to you several steps. None of these are magical. They're not silver bullets, but there may be observations to jog your mind and make you think. What I would encourage you to do is think about the data that is going to be presented today around ACEs, and then think about actionable steps that you as a group and you as a broader community can take. The first challenge that I think you will have is to construct an environmental landscape. What are the real realities on the ground? What stories, what anecdotes, what personal experiences do you have that can bring knowledge and wisdom to the state of kids in your county? Additionally, along with those qualitative measures, you and I both know there are a number of qualitative measures that you can look at. Shannon later today is going to be talking to you about data subsets that are linked to ACEs. I know that additionally today we're going to be distributing the Kids Count book that has Daviess County level data. When you look at that, I would challenge you to look at it in a number of different lenses. For instance, when I looked at that data, I noticed that on about 2/3 of the measures, Daviess County was doing better than the state average. That's the good news. You got the bad news, don't you? If you're doing better on 2/3 of the measures, that suggests that on 1/3 of the measures, you're not doing as well as other counties in Kentucky. That's an interesting mix. The other part of the data that I would challenge you to delve into, and I'm not sure if there's another county in Kentucky that reflects this pattern, every measure on Daviess County, you are either getting better or you're getting worse. There's not a single data point in which you have a stable situation. In fact, what you have is, again, about a 1/3, 2/3 mix, that you're getting better on those measures, you're getting worse on about 1/3. So when you look at that data landscape, I would just challenge you to look at that in a number of different ways. I mean, maybe the data speaks that you want to look at a data point in which you're excelling and you want to get better and better at that strength. Or maybe it suggests to take a look at a data point in which you're not faring as well. And that's what you want to focus on. My experience has been that it helps an organization or a community to work on both strengths and weaknesses. So maybe you as a group or you as a community want to dig into the Kids Count data, want to look at the data that Shannon is going to share, and think about, do we have a 2 or 3 pronged approach where we're going to get better at what we're already doing well, but we're also going to tackle some problems that perhaps are more endemic to our environment. So number one would be that idea of a environmental or a data landscape. Secondly, I want to really challenge you to be brutal analyst of trend lines. When you look at policy change, whether that's on a national, state, or local basis, I would suggest to you that all of us, and that includes Terry Brooks and KYA, We have to be so careful that we don't spend our time advocating and working on trends that are dying. And in fact, we have to avoid the tendency of only working on trend lines that are established. Instead, what I would challenge you to do is what we at KYA try to internally challenge ourselves to do, which is to look at trend lines that are boundary spanning or innovative. What are ideas, what are trends, what are concepts that you've heard about, that you've thought about, for instance, around adverse childhood experiences that are not realities for kids in Davis County? And how would you proceed to make those imaginations into reality? So again, keep thinking about Davis County as the best place in Kentucky to be a kid. You've conducted that environmental landscape. You've begun to analyze trends. The next thing that I would challenge you to do is to seize the concept of a guiding coalition. There's a lot written about guiding coalitions. Tom Peters, Rosabeth Cantor Moss, Peter Senge. I love John Cotter's work in this realm. What all of those folks suggest is that what doesn't work is how all of us normally do coalitions, which is very much a y'all come. If you're interested, we want you at the table. And at the sake of sounding politically incorrect, all of these authors suggest that coalitions have to be crafted with much more intentionality than we normally do. For instance, Cotter suggests that you have to clearly establish a locus of leadership. I mean, is it just me? Or have you ever been in a coalition where seemingly everyone thinks they're the leader or no one thinks they're the leader? So if you're putting together this kids coalition, make sure it's clearly established who's the leader. Secondly, Cotter talks about the importance of a management function. Again, maybe it's just me, but I seemingly belong to so many coalitions where nobody takes care of the details. I don't get the minutes. I don't know when the next meeting is. I don't know where the next meeting is. I don't know what we're talking about at the next meeting. That's not leadership, that's management. So if leadership is doing the right things, this is doing things right. The other thing that Cotter, as well as those other authors, talk a lot about are other roles on those coalitions. For instance, you absolutely have to have voices of expertise, folks who really know the issue that you're probing. That's so important to have content knowledge. But we know that sometimes the smartest folks in the room may not carry credibility and influence. So another sphere to consider is who in Davis County carries that voice of influence and credibility. They may or may not be experts on the topic on the table, but you need them there to carry the message to the broader community. So when you're thinking about the idea that you're putting together that kids coalition to tackle that issue that you have decided to focus in on, make sure that leadership, management, expertise, influence, and credibility are there. There's one more voice that I think is essential for that guiding coalition, an unlikely voice. Who in your community would you not normally think of as involved in that particular issue, and yet their voice, their ideas, their presence could bring so much to the effort? That's sometimes the toughest of those roles that we've described. Sometimes it's the most important. So again, you've done an environmental scan. You've looked at trend lines, making sure that you're going to work not on a dying or an established trend, but on a boundary trend. You've assembled that guiding coalition. The third step I would suggest to you involves how do you message the mission? I could talk a lot about that. Instead, I'll give you a simple homework assignment. All of you or some of you need to get the book Made to Stick by Heath and Heath. It is absolutely the best work out there on how you can move the needle around policies. It talks about how to paint cerebral images, sort of for folks who are driven by facts and data. It talks about how to bring emotion and heart to the issue. That's a whole subset and probably another day in Owensboro for you to work on it. But after you've done that landscape, after you've done the trend analysis, after you've built that coalition, if you do not give primacy to the role of messaging, all that hard work is going to be lost. Finally, I'm getting to the end of this, the final challenge that I would suggest is that you seize the idea that early wins build momentum. I have to tell you, one of the frustrations that I have as an advocate with partners, and they're well-meaning, but they have a very different take on strategy than we at KYA do, and that is that we at KYA do not believe that good is the enemy of perfect. We don't think that you have to win the issue in one fell swoop at one single time. Instead, our experience in all kinds of arenas has been that you start small, that you get a win, that accelerates progress from year to year to year. And I would invite and I would challenge you as you think about adverse childhood experiences, as you think about the broader kids count data, as you think about Davis County as the best place in Kentucky to be young. Certainly you want to have aspirations and you want to have that big goal, but don't minimize the role of early wins as a catalyst for progress. So what does all this mean? My colleagues at KYA know that perhaps my favorite quote when it comes to kids comes from a guy named Ted Sizer, who before his death was a prominent professor at Brown University. Did a lot of thinking about social entrepreneurship, especially in the K-12 arena. Dr. Sizer had a wonderful quote, which is that we face a blizzard of opportunities and obligations. I can't think of a place that faces more opportunities and more obligations to its kids than Davis County. Good luck, have a good day, and again, my apologies, not just for not being there today, but I'm kind of bummed not getting that Owensboro barbecue.